Hi guys, Jonathan here, with what might appear on the face of it to be a basically unremarkable 1870s revolver, at least if you know your Victorian revolvers. You might even spot the Belgian nature of this thing. It's a little bit hard to sort of quantify, but it has a few styling cues that maybe you'd think it's come from Belgium. Now, the Belgian arms industry, or firearms industry, was and is huge. It's one of the major manufacturing hubs in the world for guns and has been since very, very early times. So you might find a revolver of this nature coming out of another country, but as I say, if I'd just come across this in a drawer, which I sort of did, I would have said, yes, Belgian. Now, one of the reasons we know it's 1870s is its Pinfire. Now, we've covered this before on this channel, but the way to tell that are the notches in the cylinder. So I'll show you this properly in a moment, but there are little empty spaces at the back of the outside of this revolver cylinder. And then the other thing is a big flat hammer with no firing pin on the front of it, of any kind. It's just a flat surface, and that slaps down almost like a sort of detonator onto, well, what? The answer is this: the pin sticking out of the side of the cartridge case. So this is an 11mm Pinfire round. Think of it like a hammer and anvil situation, or indeed like a centerfire cartridge, only the cap is inside and the little copper pin gets thwacked by the flat hammer. So, as I say, we've covered that before, but I wanted to recap because that is how this works. So yes, relatively straightforward. Still a nice antique object, but not very unusual. Solid frame, Pinfire cylinder. But talking about Pinfire, how on earth do you load it? And that's where this thing gets interesting. So if I spin this around and show you the almost kind of sync plug chain that's hanging off the side of this thing, you might start to realise why I found this interesting and why I wanted to show it to you. Can you guess what that's for? Well, one thing I haven't shown you is how you load this and how you get a cartridge where it needs to go. So I'll try and demonstrate that for you. So we have this bar sticking off the front, and we have a loop. This is all part of this. This is all one component wrapped around the barrel, and this rod hanging off the bottom. And if we pull forward on the rod and slide this forwards, out it comes. That's it all the way out. It doesn't come all the way off, luckily. It would be stopped by the sight even if it did. As you probably guessed, that has freed our cylinder, and we can now pop that out the side of the gun and let it dangle in the breeze, because that chain is a cylinder retainer. It's essentially a lanyard for your cylinder, and it isn't just so that foolish people don't lose their cylinder when they're cleaning the gun. It is in fact how you load it, because there is no loading gate. It's completely solid frame. There's no way to break it open. So this is yet another revolver system for reloading, which is there's a lot more variety there than you might think. And it means we can drop our Pinfire cartridge into one of the chambers, and the little pin sticks out the side. We would do that 7 times. This is a 7-shot weapon. And then we have to drop the cylinder back in. It's a little awkward to finagle into place. There it goes, snapped into place there. And of course what we have to remember to do is slide shut that axis pin. That means this isn't going to fall out, and B, is going to revolve when we cock the pistol. And somewhere in there is our firing pin. There it is. So, only one loaded, obviously, and it is inert. It's not a live round. So I thought that was very cool, as I hope you agree. The revolver itself, as I say, nothing to write home about. We will just unload this just for sheer best practice sake, and you also get to see how this works again if I do that. So to unload, we would hopefully just tip out the fired cases. Now, having been fired, they might be a bit sticky in there. They've expanded. They've got potentially dirt as well. Almost, this would have been black. Well, definitely would have been black powder loaded as well. So you might also need a way to poke out the empties. And I don't think I'm extrapolating too hard if I suggest that that's what this is the second feature of this rod. You can use it to knock out your empty cases. Even if that's not what they intended it for, it definitely would work. And what else are you going to do? Carry a rod around with you? So we'll snap that back in again. And you can see how this retaining device runs over the chain. You can also hopefully see that the chain has put a lot of wear on this quite nice blued finish. There's almost a tiger stripe effect there, where this has been ground against the barrel over the years. So that is a downside. It does wear your gun out a little bit, but it wouldn't obviously affect function at all. We do have some decoration, some basic double lining around the frame and around the recoil shield. There's a serial number on there. (1036) There's an potentially very interesting mark stamped next to that, which is a crown over FA, or at least that's what it looks like. It's really badly stamped. It looks like they've actually hit the curved bit of the frame and slipped. So it's quite indistinct. Looks like crown over FA. The closest thing I could find to that is an inspection stamp for the government, for the military of Portugal. But I very much doubt that that's what this is. And if you've seen one like this before, let us know. I've only seen one other in pictures, and that's on Alain Dubress's excellent littlegun.be website. Now that one is stainless steel, or nickel, sorry, it's probably nickel plated, I'm remembering here, fitted with a shoulder stock, so it's very interesting in its own right, but the frame, the cylinder, the retention mechanism is all identical. And that is the work of Alexandre Fagnus, who, Forgotten Weapons actually have covered, they've covered a different revolver design attributed to him as well. He was an established Liege gunmaker. There are a couple of other markings on this thing. Under the grips are the capital letters NM, unfortunately. No clue what those refer to. Once again, if anybody knows, please let us know, or if you have a guess. The others, though, are quite straightforward, and they are British proof marks for the Birmingham Proof House, which are tiny, tiny stamps on the cylinder, and the set of view and proof marks on the underside of the barrel. If you can't see those clearly, they are absolutely standard Birmingham proof marks. Well, so what, I suppose, you might be asking at this point, if you're not overawed by this absolutely ingenious cylinder retaining system. Well, you'd be right too, I think, because this is it's not overly complicated. We've seen far more mechanically complex ways to open up a revolver for loading and reloading. This is relatively straightforward. The chain, I mean, it is very reminiscent of a sync plug chain, and you know how easily those break. So I would not trust quite a hefty piece of, probably steel actually rather than iron, hanging off this thing, especially if you're trying to reload in any kind of hurry and you drop it and it, there's a bit of force on the chain there and then it swings in the wind. Yeah, intuitively it doesn't seem very, very good. The rarity alone speaks to people not being wild about this system. And of course, 1870, 1880, we're starting to get, in those 2 decades, gate loading, like the single action army, the Smith & Wesson break open patent, or the tip up initially, I mean, that already exists by this point. So there are already better ways to reload a revolver by far than a dangling cylinder. I suppose you could go for some sort of speed load system where you let the cylinder dangle and you slap in another one that's not on a chain, but I don't think that would be very clever. And in fact, even today, it's extremely rare that people involved in having to use a handgun have the opportunity to reload. So, very true in the past as well. Now, the Fagnus company, Alexandre Fagnus and company, that does have quite a history to it. So we actually have Fagnus and company operating 1870 to 1879, which is bang in the ballpark of this. We then have Alexandre joins up with C. Clement in 1879 to 1883, but he's also in business on his own from 1883 to 1887. Finally, with a chap called Nosson, or Nossent, is in terrible English, which is from 1887 to 1890. So from 1870 to 1890, a 20-year career working with two different people and on his own. He's a potentially quite interesting chap beyond just this system. So a couple of reasons really, a little bit of history and a little bit of technical interest. That's why we've got this out for you here today. Thanks as always for watching, everybody. We appreciate it all the more right now because we've actually just passed 200,000 subscribers. Really can't thank you enough for boosting us up past that milestone. Needless to say, we would like even more, so please do continue to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the usual YouTube stuff. Keep an eye on this channel. You can catch me over on the GameSpot video game channel as well. We're still doing that. We have our reams of social media content as well: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We even have an old-fashioned website and an even more old-fashioned set of 3 physical sites that you can come and visit as well, which we'd also appreciate you doing, especially while the weather's nice. Take care, guys. Thank you very much.